Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 33-year veteran reader, editor, and publisher of comic science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. With me, my co-host, the CMYK-isher, Christopher M. Hall, and our guest this week, founder of Antarctic Press, Ben Dunn, and founder of Big Dog Inc., and creator of Critter, which is being published at Antarctic Press, Tom Hutchinson.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Okay, this is going to be an interesting conversation. Ben, this is your 40th year in business.
Yes, sir. Don't know how I figured out. I don't know how we survived this long, but here we are.
I don't know how we survived 15, Ben, on my side. So,
Hey, yeah, 15 is a good number, man.
Yeah. Give us a little bit of history about when that started back in '85.
Oh gosh. Well, I was still in college, and I was I got to the point where I said, you know what, I'm through with this stuff. And I just wanted to go out and do my own thing because I love comics. And the Turtles had just come out, and the Diamond and all these other direct market distributors were starting to pop up. And I did some research on trying to get into comic book stores, and I wrote to all the different distributors, and they said, "Yeah, we'll carry your book." So we signed up, and I started Antarctic Press, and we did our first comic magazine and shipped it, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Okay. Now, my first experience remembering seeing your stuff was Tiger X, but I don't know if that was at Antarctic or if that was with Malibu.
Well, that was with Antarctic at first. It was an anthology. You know, for some reason, I just love anthology book comics, and it started in Tiger X, and Eternity picked it up later and reprinted it and did new stories, actually. So I guess it did well enough for them to want to continue it.
Okay. Because that's where I first remembered seeing your work, was with the Tiger X stuff.
Oh, yeah, I love that series.
And I think that was like 86 or 87.
Definitely a product of its time.
Yeah, because I was still going to high school back then, but I hadn't quite. I'd started doing apazines. I don't know if folks who watch the show know what an apazine is. It's an amateur press alliance, like a fan club group that makes a little fanzine strictly for the membership, and maybe a little bit for sale outside of the membership, but usually just for the membership.
Oh yeah. That was the paper internet of our time.
Yep. That's where I started out back around 87, 88-ish. And then I started going to college. And then it was like the wizard scene and the image explosion came out. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to, even though I wasn't an image guy, I was more of a Bern Perez, Garcia Lopez guy. This is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
Okay, so you started out in 85 with Mangazine, and then how did you get into expansion to the level of titles? Because when did Ninja High School start?
Well, Ninja High School started in 86. I started working on it in 86. It was never intended to go more than 3 issues. It was originally just a 3-issue miniseries. Yeah, I mean, I would just, because, I had so many ideas, I wanted to just go ahead and say, I'll just do a 3-issue miniseries and move on to the next thing, and then it sold really, really well for us. And that's what catapulted us into actually being able to make some real money in comics, and then it seemed to hit with the readers at the time. And of course, there wasn't a lot of manga at the time either, so we didn't have a lot of competition. But it just resonated with people, and we've been doing it ever since. Of course, Eternity picked it up for a little while, and then it came back to AP, and then it took a little hiatus when Diamond instituted their minimum order policy. But then when they dropped that, Ninja High School came back. So that was one of our things. And then during the run on Ninja High School, I kept getting all these submissions, fan stories. And stuff like that, and it was starting to pile up, and I thought to myself, there's got to be something we can do to use this, all this stuff that we're getting, So I decided to do the Ninja High School yearbook, and that really saved our company because at the time, the Ninja High School was at Eternity Comics, and we weren't getting much money off of that. And so, but the Ninja High School yearbook allowed us to do our own thing, and it sold really well, and it saved AP from our first almost bankruptcy at the time. So that allowed us to keep on going. And I tell you, it's just by the skin of our teeth that we're still around for 40 years. There's been a lot of times where we were always on that brink, but somehow managed to pull ourselves back at the last moment.
Yeah, there's so many people, peers of your era, that are now either out of comics, or they're only in comics for crowdfunding or direct sales to the fans, nothing for the direct market into the comic shops from that era now. Because of like you mentioned a few seconds ago, the diamond policy of the minimum orders and other things that they did that were just, well, let's just say unfair.
Right.
Yes, I would agree with that.
What was your average print run? I'm just curious for Ninja High School.
Well, let's see. The first issue did pretty well. I think we sold about 5,000 copies the first issue. And then the second issue actually went up. And then the third issue went up even more. So we were at this peak, when it was selling at Terror, we were like 15,000 copies, at its peak. But then, of course, it started to die during the 90s, and then it flatlined around 3,000 copies around the 2000s when Diamond instituted their minimum threshold thing. So we couldn't continue because Ninja Ice was just barely selling under 3,000. So I couldn't keep it going through Diamond. So we put it on hiatus, and then when they dropped it, then I brought it back, so now.
When did they drop that policy?
I think I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so. I don't know when exactly they did it. I know it was probably pretty close when I returned to AP, because I had also taken a hiatus from AP around 2000 to about 2010 or so, and I think that's about the time they dropped that policy.
Okay. And that threshold was like 10,000 copies, right?
I think it was 3,000 was the threshold.
3,000 was the threshold.
Yes.
But it wasn't just a 3,000. If you had certain numbers under 3,000, they played games with you about how much advertising you put in the catalog and other things to stay in, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Chris knows this. I did a whole investigation on that era of Diamond's operations because there was just a lot of shenanigans about whose books were getting what orders and what was going on.
Right. Yeah.
It was not fun.
There was a lot of speculation. I know as a comic fan that it was specifically aimed. That policy was specifically aimed to possibly keep indie press out of the market.
Not so much just keeping indie press. I mean, yes, there were certain employees of Diamond who said to my face, said to Randy Zimmerman at Arrow Comics' face, off the record, that Steve Jeffy just wanted us to blow away and go away. We didn't want us around. But officially, they couldn't do that because that would be discrimination, and that would have brought a lot of legal ramifications if they'd done that. So,
yeah, and they were a monopoly, so they were the only game in town.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was another issue.
So that was that was not a good time.
Yeah. So Tom came in 2010 with his company, Big Dog Inc., starting with his series Critter, which is now being published with Ben at Antarctic. How did you come about to? It's a long story how you got to Antarctic, but go ahead and tell us.
Actually, it's not. I made Critter in 2010. It was the second book that we released when we started all of Big Dog Inc. It's been we did a mini series originally, ran it as an ongoing series through 20 issues, and then we moved at that point over to Aspen Comics. Aspen became our publisher for a few years. They basically went back and reprinted the series. We added some new material to the back so that the existing fans would be able to get some new material, like a little backup story to it. After our Aspen time for 3 years, I basically had the decision to either go back into Diamond and just go do things the way we were doing them, or at that point, Kickstarter was kind of starting to pop off, and so we moved our stuff into Kickstarter. Flash forward about 7 years from that point, I met Ben just doing podcasts, just like this panel podcast, and I again and again and again and again, I was like, Ben's here. And all the time, Ben kept talking about like, well, we're looking for product, we're looking for cool creator stuff, or we have these anthologies and so on. And along that time, I was always kind of thinking like, when do I take Big Dog back to retail? We were looking at doing it in 2020 for our 10-year anniversary. Of course, COVID happened, that blew all of that stuff up. And so I put that on the back burner. And then a few years later, we started talking to Ben, and I was like, you know what, maybe that's the way to sort of dip my toe back into the market. And so Ben and AP published Catnip, which was a book that we did through some crowdfunding stuff, but to the general marketplace, it was a brand new book that had never actually been in retail. So that was our first new book back in retail in like 8 years, which was really fun to do. And then I don't know, maybe 6 months or so after that, I was like, look, do you want to just take the series and just like rerun it, and I'll put some new covers on it? And they were open to it. They checked it out. They were like, yeah, this is cool. And, we set it up, and it's been running for, I don't know, a year ish, a little over a year now. And it's been great because as I've been doing cons ever since the books come out, every time I do cons now, I get people come up to the booth and they're very confused because they're like, why is Critter 24 on this table when we're only in issue 5 in the retail stores? I'm like, well, let me tell you the story that I just told everybody here. But it's very cool because they're very excited. Because I tell them like, well, if you want to catch up, you can catch up right here. If you want to just go along for the ride, and you'll get the new issue every couple of months. And, you've got years worth of Critter to, put into your pull box. And usually they'll end up buying a couple of variants or something. And they're just excited to see that it exists, because a lot of stuff with indie comics, maybe you get 6 issues out of something, and a lot of times that stuff just disappears. So the idea that they're like, oh, I can just sit here and wait for these books to come out for years and years and have fun with it, they get really excited about that. So it's great.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, speaking of Critter, let's take a quick look. And this thing will let me share. Doesn't like to share things. Let's see. Where is it? It's not wanting to share it. I don't know why it's not wanting to share. Cancel. Let's see what it's doing here. I see. No, I see why. Okay. Silly computer. Let's see. There we go. Window. Now, why are you doing that? You just canceled me again. There we go. The second best superhero comic book in the universe.
That's correct. The factual statement.
What's the first?
Well, so there's 2 answers to that. The first is what I tell people is whatever you think it is. Whatever your favorite is, I cannot argue with whatever your favorite is, but this is the second best. Now, the true answer is Invincible, because for a period of time, Invincible, Robert Kirkman used to actually put across the top of Invincible books the best superhero comic book in the universe. So I said to myself, well, if they're the best, we can be second best. Yeah. And then that just fits into the tone of the book too. It's just kind of fun. We don't take ourselves seriously. It's just it's an open door to, come in, have a little fun. and that's it. That's what we got.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And you know, you're part of the Superverse, which is kind of like this combination of a variety of different characters, from creator owned, from different people that have come into the anthology books, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Do you guys like get to work together and collaborate and share each other's characters, or is it just randomized, or what?
Yeah, we can if we want to. The whole idea behind it is that it's basically just like look at it as like one big huge universe, you know, with various creators, in which if one creator wants to connect with another creator and they want to cross their characters over, they can do that, you know, and they want to go through AP to do it, then we are more than welcome to facilitate that. You know, the whole idea is that my whole idea behind it is that this would be our superhero universe or independent comic universe where anybody can participate, you know, and share and cross over and just create events within our own sphere, you know. Why should Marvel and DC have all the fun?
Right.
Okay.
That's incredibly cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things that we got to do with Critter is part of the tagline on the back of these books is there's guest stars in this stuff, and it's true. There are other people's characters. In fact, you can see right there, Lilyhammer by Todd Knock, The Sire, Michael Dolce, Pinpoint, Alfred Page, Cat 5, Sebastian. So their characters, their own superhero characters, make guest appearances in our book. So that was really, really fun to do, and we did it continuously throughout the series. Every time we had sort of like city backdrop, you know, like, hey, we need to like put a guy back there. Do you want to like have your guy be a cameo? And they're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So that was a really fun thing to do. Todd was the first one to let me do it. I thank Todd eternally for that. He was great when I first started trying to figure out like how do you make a comic book, because he was one of the guys that I bugged over and over and over again. And I was at where the hell was I? Wizard World Los Angeles. And he was there, and I came up to his booth, and I was just talking to him. And he realized I wasn't going away. So he says, look, just come back here, sit next to me, and we'll talk. And that way, everybody else, when they come up, I can deal with them. I said, awesome, I'll sit down. And so I just picked his brain for like the whole day, and he was super great. I talked to him about using Lilyhammer in this scene. He wasn't for it initially. He was kind of, well, I don't know. I mean, and why would he? I'm not anybody. But you know, as I got to that scene and I had to write it and actually put it in the book, I messaged him one more time. I said, Todd, I just wanted to reach out to you one more time. Zero pressure, but if you'd let me use Lily for this, it would be great. Tell me your thoughts. And he just messaged me back. Well, tell me again what this is. I gave him the scene. He says, okay, write it out for me and show me what it would be. So I wrote it out, showed it to him. He said, well, I have some changes. And I said, yeah, of course. Tell me what your changes are. And he said this and that. And can we do this? And I said, oh, of course. And so he rewrote the scene in a way, not the whole thing, but like the finale in a way that I immediately learned something from a creative standpoint, writing standpoint, because what he did was better than what I was doing. And so I rewrote it based on his notes, and he was like, oh, that's really good. That's really fun. Did it. He rewrote some of the dialogue because he was like, well, she has very specific, you know, a way of talking. So tell me what she needs to say, and I'll kind of tinker with it so it has her Swedish sort of, you know, accent and so on to it. And I said, yeah, that's fine. So he did that, and we got to use Lily for 2 or 3 pages, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Love it.
Yeah, Todd's fantastic. If you guys are ever going to Comic Cons and Todd is there, do yourself a favor, go talk to Todd. In fact, you're right here. You're right on the Lilyhammer scene, right in here.
Yep.
He did a cover. He did our first cover. Our first ever variant cover was Todd Knox. So I love that guy.
Yeah, Todd's a great guy. And I was this Zay Villeneuve, who is Lilyhammer.
Yeah, so good, so good.
What?
And that finale, that's his finale, where she kind of figures it out, taps the thing on the thing, and calms herself again. So Lily, for those that don't know, she comes from a book that he does called Wild Guard, which is sort of a like an American Idol kind of superhero thing where they're kind of putting together a team and so on. So I always liked Lily from that book, and that's why I asked if I could use her.
No, that's cool. Wild Guard was published by Image, I believe, back in 98, 99. Does that sound right?
Yeah, late 90s. Well, no, you know what? It probably would have been early 2000s, but in that range, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's during the period where I was lost in the desert. I didn't have any comic shop for 100 miles. It's like, yeah, sure. We'll hold the book for you. You drive there. Well, we sold out.
Well, that's the beauty of it all. You know, it's like creators, when they own their creation, they have the ability and the power to hook up with other creators to create, you know, something really, you know, special and magical about it. You know, you don't have to go through hoops and, you know, and get all these permission from lawyers and stuff. You just, hey, you want to cross over with my character? Sure. You let me use your character? Sure. Let's do it. You know, and that's the beauty of being able to control and own your creation. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost akin to, you know, how what Marvel was doing, you know, back in the day. Because everybody was based in New York. So, of course, Spider-Man swinging through, and, you know, there'd be Daredevil, you know, and all the other cameos and stuff in everybody else's comic books.
Yeah, Marvel used to do that a lot. What they did was there was a new character, okay, they would always have it appear in, like, all the titles of that particular month just to promote it, you know. Or if the character sales were sliding, you put in Spider-Man.
Yep. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, we all remember the 90s where Wolverine was in every issue.
Oh yeah.
Wolverine or Punisher or both.
Yeah.
Yes. In the early 80s, where apparently Wolverine was Australian.
To come back.
Right, but
yeah, at least in the TV show he was.
Yeah.
But no one knew what accent he had. He was supposed to be Canadian. And, you know, I think Wolverine is, hey, bud. You know, I think he was originally supposed to sound Canadian. You know, and I think the TV show people didn't understand, you know, what a Canadian accent was supposed to sound like. So I guess this voice actor said, I'll just make him sound Australian because you know.
That was Spider-Man. Was popular. Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I remember. I'm trying to remember the name of the character here.
Rookie.
Okay, and she's got her energy balls that she throws.
Well, in this case, she's throwing baseballs. She can create things out of light, but since she's a sports themed character, she tends to do baseball bats, hockey sticks, whatever. So here she's just chucking, you know, baseballs at Tide Pool, which isn't going to do a thing. But that's all right. She's trying.
Yep.
So where did you come up with the idea for Critter, Tom? When did this come into fruition?
So Critter back in the day, I wasn't trying to be a writer. I was trying to be an artist. And I was trying to figure out, like, how do I draw at all, much less draw comics? And so I did what everybody else was doing. I was drawing the X-Men and, you know, whatever, let me draw Nightcrawler and whatever. But I found myself really bored drawing those characters. And so in the back of business class in 1992, I started drawing Critter. I created her for the purpose of learning how to draw. I wanted my own character right off the bat. I was like, I'm tired of drawing these characters. So I wanted my own character. Started drawing her in a sketchbook, which I still have. It's part of the Big Dog Ink archive. It's a dumb little lined, you know, thing that has the original drawings of Critter in it. But back in the day, she was called the Kawadi. And that's because before I started drawing her, we had just watched the Discovery Channel thing on this furry little animal called the Kawadi, which I thought was the strangest looking thing, but I thought that's super cool. And so when I drew her, she originally had, you know, like real ears, real tail, you know, like furry ears and stuff. And so I just started drawing her. And over a period of time, I would change the costume a little bit. Like, okay, what if it's this? What if it's this? And that's where the story started to come in. I didn't have a story for her, but once I started drawing different costumes on her, I was like, oh, she could be in space, or she could be, you know, here, or she could be here. And that's where I kind of started to lean into the writing side of things, because I realized, like, even if I'm decent at drawing this character, now I got to draw like trees and horses and cars, and like I'm not advancing fast enough to do all of this. And so I fell back into the writing side of it, and I started to develop a story. And the first story that I developed is not what you guys have at all. But ironically enough, I also have like 3 pages of art that I drew based off of that script, again, in the Big Dog Ink archives. But again, that's where I kind of figured out, like, oh man, this is not going to work. I can't draw this. I'll never get it done. So I leaned into the writing, and I just started studying writing at that point. You know, what do I really have to do to write a script that I can give to somebody to draw? And that's when it kind of got real for me. And I reconceptualized the whole thing, brought it back to like, the superhero stuff that I loved, like the 70s and 80s, and with a little mix of, you know, modern 90s. And I got a script done. I had a guy who was willing to sort of help me out, and so I sent him the script, and he was like, well, kind of like Todd, right? Like, well, this, maybe think about that. So we reworked it. And then we ended up getting the 0 issue that we first put out, like the Secret Origin issue. And we were off to the races at that point. It sold really well. Everything was, you know, we were back to utility belts, spandex costumes. Like I didn't want anything to be like what we were getting at that time, where everything was sort of leaning into real. I was like, I don't really want real in this book. Like, and I've had designers ever since be like, well, that's not really realistic. And I'm like, I know, that's what we do here. We don't do real superheroes. Like, I'm not concerned with what a boot really looks like, or you know, the why does she have her midriff showing? Because it looks cool. Yeah, but she wouldn't, because it looks cool. And we really have lost a lot of that in comics, of just saying, just looks cool. Like, just do it. It looks cool. You know, that's the Todd McFarlane way. Oh, looks cool, man. Just go. And we just went with all the designs. We just make it weird, make it different, make it fun. Keyword fun. And you know, that's where we went.
I think for design, the key from what I took when I was doing my studies on it, because I was like you, I was a writer, and I was like, well, I can't afford artists, I'm gonna have to learn how to draw. The only difference was I just kept going, you know. And so it was like, yeah, the thing though for like design is, can I design it consistently from every angle, and you know, not do stupid things like a lot of artists do, like, hey, it's Batman's utility belt. This panel, he's got 3 on one hip and 2 on the other. The next panel, he's got 5 on each.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. It's like, just keep the character on model and make this thing work. Yeah. And I think that's the key, where a lot of younger artists, yes, it looks cool, but can you draw it from different angles and make it look consistent?
Well, there's a reason why classic superhero costumes stand the test of time. You know, you can make it as realistic as you want, but the problem is, there was a reason why the costumes were drawn very simply back in the day. Is because you had to put out a monthly comic, and you were always on a deadline.
So a boot is a line. Zoop. Boot.
Yeah, you couldn't spend too much time, you know, too much realism. I mean, you could do it, but it takes time. Drawing stuff like that takes time. You know, in the when you're on a deadline like that back in the early days, you had to make sure the costumes not only was simple to draw and was you could do it over and over again, but it had to be iconic. You know, kids had to be able to recognize their favorite superhero from a mile away simply by looking, you know, at what the costume looked like, and it had to be, you know, reproducible, so that people could recognize it immediately once they see it. You know, because that's to me the secret to a good costume, is that somebody can look at it once or twice and immediately recognize it, you know, much later. I know that character.
And that's why a lot of times you'll hear you'll hear people talk about, like, in design sense, like, give them a logo, make a logo. It's like Superman's logo, Wonder Woman, Batman. That way the logo itself is almost the character. As soon as you see the logo, you just understand what it is you're seeing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Pop Culture says, I just want to say I love the old Eternity comics with Mr. Dunn, Tiger X, Ninja High School, Captain Harlock, all really good series.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
And so 2 things. Tom, I was coloring a page for you, and I made some tights a certain color, and you're like, no, her skin's red, they gotta be this color. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I was just trying to go for realism. And you said, cool trumps real every time.
Yeah.
And that piece of advice has stuck with me, and I'm like, I'm living by that. That is how I'm doing comics now, is cool trumps real every time.
Yeah. I mean, unless the book requires real, then that's fine. Go do real. But otherwise, I've had that discussion, particularly with colorists, many times, where they're like, "Well, this would be," and I'm just like, "Make it look cool. Make it look cool."
I mean, if you think about it for a minute, okay. Look at manga, for instance. None of the characters look real. Okay, you look at the way they draw. None of them look real. Okay, but everything around them is real.
Right.
Okay? You look at the manga artists, they draw buildings, exactly the way they look. They draw cars exactly the way they draw weapons and guns and things exactly the way they should look. The only thing that's not real are the people.
Right.
And the reason for that is because that's a stylistic choice the artist makes to, make them stand out from all the other manga artists that are out there. You see what I'm trying to say? The thing is that style, trumps, like Tom says, style and coolness, they trump realism. Okay, people can encounter real all the time. Okay, but when you have style and cool and things like that, that's what they want to escape you to. They want to be able to be part of that world that you're creating.
Yeah, escape is the perfect word. You want to take them somewhere else for those 20 pages as best as you possibly can.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think we're losing a little bit of that. In fact, I think we're losing a lot of that, especially with modern superhero comics. Because they're trying to go too far into the realism. And if you think about it, I mean, come on, superheroes, they're not real. Okay. Right. But the world you create is real, to the character you're creating. And you're inviting the person to live in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I think part of it is that we got so many people today that are like obsessed with the wrong elements of the story. Like, what are the characters' sexuality? Who are they sleeping with? Who cares? It's like, are you trying to live vicariously because you don't have?
Yeah. Who do they vote for? What do they eat? I mean, perhaps half the story, these characters are eating something. I mean, that was something that never happened. Hardly ever happened in comics.
Well, they even got rid of Wolverine smoking back in the day because they thought it would lead kids to smoking because Wolverine was cool and he was smoking. Like,
right.
It's like, Then I just had an issue of 196 where Kitty Pryde takes the cigar out of his mouth and starts choking on it when she tries to take a few puffs. Well, that was actually my first X-Men scene and made me fall in love with Kitty Pryde.
And what about the Punisher, and his use of guns,
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to my second question. Just a general comics question. Do you feel like the industry has pushed artists to be way too detailed in lieu of motion and the dynamicism that they used to have? Like, now everything is just so incredibly detailed.
I don't think the industry made that happen. The industry, whatever that, I still don't like that term because the industry is multiple facets.
Right.
But that was art just kind of adapts and changes and modifies. And you reach points where, we used to have, like we talked about, like put a line on the boot, right? And then we moved to guys like Jim Lee who are, adding things, and Rob Liefeld who are adding things. Todd McFarlane are adding things. Extra Arthur Adams and his insane cross-hatching and, you know, just insanity. You know, I think art wants to evolve and grow all the time. And if it doesn't, I think you're just going to get stagnant everything. So there was just a trend to become real, or, you know, just more detailed, heavily detailed. But like Ben was talking about, that slowed everything down. You see that in the 90s. A lot of books started slowing down because they were doing so much extra effort and that kind of stuff. So, but also the fans responded to it. The fans saw that stuff and they were like, yo, what am I looking at? This is crazy. And so everybody wanted to do that. Like, let's, okay, let me up my style. Let me change to look like this. And you can see artists over the years, like, change what they do based on what was happening around them.
Well, I mean, some artists, it was because they didn't have much of a choice. It was either draw like we want you to as the more modern, or you're not going to get any more work.
That's a very real thing. I've heard artists say, like Marvel said, can you draw like, you know, whoever? Because that's what we need now, is we need you to look like that. Right. Because again, that's what the fans were reacting to.
Yeah, I mean, on the detail question, you know, I don't have anything wrong with. I love detail. You know, when artists take the time to do detail, then it's been going on for a long time. As far as artists have been in existence, it's always been about the details. You know, the thing about it is style. To me, it's all about style. Okay, you can, anybody, if you really think about it, any artist should be able to draw, you know, a rudimentary car or a gun or a building or whatever that, you know, how much time you want to put into that, that's up to you as an artist. Okay, if you want to draw something super realistic and you want to take the time, some artists are really good at that. You know, some artists can draw cars like nobody's business. Some artists can draw horses great. You know, some artists can draw military equipment, you know, down to the last bolt. You know, and that's fantastic. You know, I can't do that. You know, but I do. But I draw in a style that I like. You know, the characters will do it, and hopefully other people like that too. I love detail. As an artist, you know, when I see another artist who takes the time to do every little tiny little thing. I mean, when I looked at that, I don't know if you've seen the Frankenstein portfolio that Bernie Wrightson did. You know,
yes.
I mean, oh my God, he must have spent a year on just one of those illustrations. You know, because it was just so incredible what he's done. You know, and that was done back in the 70s. You know, and that artists have always done detail, and that's, to me, it's all about style. Okay, it's all about an artist being able to create a certain look, you know, a unique style that people can immediately identify. I think somebody told me once, is you're not trying to sell your art, you're trying to sell yourself. You know, you're trying to convince people that you are the one that people are wanting to support. So you do something that will ingrain yourself into the minds of your potential readers and your potential backers. You know, because they're supporting you because they like the way you draw something. You know, they like the way you present something. You know,
yeah. When I started out in this industry, you know, I basically became what you call a ghost artist. I did either the background drawings or other things for while the other people got the credit, or I drew in other people's art styles because they were hitting their deadlines. So to me, yes, you have to find your own style and be unique to yourself. But I find the best artists in this business can draw on 30 or 40 different art styles.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, you know, but you have to find your own voice. You know, the thing is, if you really want to break out and be known, you know, to people will identify who you are just simply looking at your work. Okay, that's the level I think artist needs to achieve.
Well, I mean, like you know who John Byrne is, obviously.
Oh yes,
and John Byrne has his style, but John Byrne ghosted for Tom Butchick on Crankshaft, the comic book strip. He emulated Liefeld in his She-Hulk comic. He emulated Wendy Pini.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with emulating someone so in your beginning. Okay, I mean, Barry Smith started off as a Jack Kirby clone. Okay, you know, and Rich Buckler started off as a Neil Adams clone.
Yeah, Scott Campbell started as a Jim Lee clone, and
exactly. The thing is you discover yourself and start developing your own style as you go. You hopefully, as an artist, you'll evolve and you'll find your voice. You'll find your style.
Yeah, your art is almost like the logo, right? You want people to see the art and go, that's Jim Lee, that's Will Spertasio, that's whoever.
That's Todd McFarlane.
As best as possible. Sometimes that's really difficult, but if that should be, and I'm not saying that if you don't do that, that you're not a good artist. That's not what we're saying.
No.
But you should, as an artist, try and really push yourself at all times to find sort of the ultimate form, of what you do.
Yes. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but Picasso could draw. Okay.
You look at his earlier stuff. Yeah, that man could draw.
But he decided, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to find my own voice. And he just started doing his own thing, and that's how now Picasso is famous for his avant-garde paintings because he found his own voice.
Yeah, and that lends itself to the narrative that you need to know the rules in order to break them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Know the rules before you can break them. Exactly.
It's good.
Pop Culture Avenger asks, are there any plans to produce collected hardcovers of Ninja High School, Mighty Tiny, Harleck, other stuff similar to the Gold Digger versions collected by Fred Perry and Antarctic?
I am planning on doing some stuff. Yes. Right now, it's just a matter of timing. It's just a matter of getting other things, clear. I don't want to overwhelm, my backers with too many projects. So I'm trying to deliberately, space them apart so they're not too much of a burden on. I'm not one of those publishers that you got to come up with as much garbage as you can. At least the customer for as much as we can.
Just a little bit of garbage.
Well, I don't like to think that we can publish any garbage, but that's just that's a matter of opinion.
Full of garbage helps the comics go down.
Okay, let's go ahead and share this right here real quick. Now, we were showing that a little bit earlier. This is Trudy Volume 1, Kitty in the City paperback. It was $19.99. The artists were Jose Luis, JP Mayer, Fico Asio, and CB Zane. The colorist Juan, is that correct? Juan Cacra?
Yeah.
Okay. Fico Asio and CC De La Cruz, lettering by Kel Nuttall. Additional character designs by Adam Withers, Dave Roberts, and Fico Asio, with editor Carrie Castor. Genre superhero. Is there any other genre that you would say this falls under, Tom?
Oh, it's full 100% balls to the wall superhero.
Okay,
100% with a little bit of science fiction, and to me that's the best superhero stuff back in the day. Yes, you had your superheroes. Yes, they were punching each other in the face, but you also had a little bit of extra things like whether it's the science of how you got powers, or sometimes there were aliens coming to the planet or whatever. A little bit of science fiction, a lot of superheroes, and that's sort of the mix.
Now, as I understand, that's still forthcoming. Comes out on May 28th. Is that correct?
That's whatever AP is doing. That's when it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, we're. I think it's in the pipeline.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Chris and I got to see the PDF that we were sharing with you guys, and this is what we thought in general. Overall, pretty standard, good superhero stuff. Reasonably solid artists in Jose Luis and Fico Asio. Chris really likes the CB Zane stuff, but why do you like the CB Zane specifically, Chris?
I'm a huge fan of CC.
Oh yeah, Ceci De La Cruz, she's fantastic.
And every time that I'm up for a project and I hear that CC's the artist that I'm one of the artists, the colorist that I'm competing against, I'm just like, oh God.
Yeah, I keep saying that Chris is either the CC's either Chris's female nemesis or his colorist crush, and I can't figure out which. Now, some of the story felt a little bit inconsistent to me, but I felt that was partly because you were jumping around from publisher to publisher a little bit, maybe having to restart here and there. But I did think that the relationship and the storyline between Vanessa and Paradox was very well executed and very heartfelt believability, and was very well written. And we gave 3.5 stars out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, you got to also remember, I had never done this before.
Right.
So this is the beginning of, and that's one of the cool things about this series. If you stick along with this series, you can watch me grow as a writer. You can watch FICO grow as an artist. You can watch the series itself evolve and grow and get tighter and better across what we now have 25 plus issues. I think that's one of the coolest parts of this series is you're not just at the ground floor of a book and a character. You're at the ground floor of a creative person's beginnings, myself and FICO. FICO was very new. He did 20 issues with me. He went off to IDW. He was doing all the Revolution stuff with Transformers and G.I. Joe and, that big crossover. He did some of the Spider-Man stuff with them. So, I got him for as long as I could, but then he was off to his own world. So it's a great way to watch where does a creator truly start, and then what's the evolution of that over so many issues. You can really watch it grow and happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now we're going to go ahead and go on some more stuff that we've been reviewing here, and that's the Exciting Comics anthologies. As Ben mentioned early on in the episode here, he's a big fan of anthologies, and Exciting Comics was a classic series from back in the 50s and became public domain, and he brought it back in 2019. He edits along with Brian Denham, who does production. There's been 51 issues as of April 9th. And it combines new stories featuring the classic public domain characters as Madame Mask, Black Terror, The Heap, and others, as well as adding new creator-owned superheroes into the mix as well, each telling their stories. And again, that I was like, is it really a shared universe? Is it? But we've all explained that basically it is. Now, I've only had access to read about half the books between online sites, PDF shares, and my purchases. My biggest problem with getting these books is the retailers just never want to get me what I want.
For shame.
It's a pain. So several of the stories that were like continued in several across different issues, I didn't get to read them all. But that having been said, I find that my overall view is it's a really nice alternative to traditional superhero proffered up by the big two. The big two has way too many books featuring the same characters. It's very difficult to keep track and afford to keep track of everything that goes on with their stuff. And then they alienate the writers or alienate the readers with changing the characters, whereas our characters, or I should say, the creator-owned stuff, stays pretty consistent to what the creators envisioned. They might evolve and change as the writers evolve, like Tom was talking about there, but they're still pretty true to themselves, unless something really drastic is done. So I think that's a good alternative storyline. Chris, what did you think?
I think it's a great series. I love anthologies. The art is fairly consistent. It's really, really great art. Storytelling is very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really liked it.
These are some of the issues I was able to get. Now you can see I went from 12 to 18. I got 19. Then next thing I got was 32. It was like, that's how hard it is to get retailers to get my books. Now, luckily, one of my retailers recently, I found that I did get a few more in there. So I've got like 26 and 27 and 22. So I'm getting them a little bit by little bit. I will get all the run eventually. And when Ben reached out on Facebook talking about having people promote more AP books, this was the first thing I did. I went out to look out for more content, and I was just like, "Hey, get me this stuff," And they're like, "Now my retailer," and I don't know if you've heard this before, Ben. Our retailer told me that he had a hard time getting the AP books because he doesn't get as big of a discount on them.
Well, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys give 60 to 62% to Diamond,
right?
And he was telling me he only got 43% discount on those books, and I'm thinking,
that's news to me.
Yeah, and I was like, well, what is normal? Because at last I knew, normal was still between 50 and 55%.
Yeah, we don't. Well, once it's out of our hands, we can't really control any of that. You know,
Yeah.
we sell it to Diamond. They're the people who buys our stuff. We don't deal directly with the. I mean, we do if the retailer wants to contact us. You know, but once it's out in Diamond's hands, we have no control over it after that. So I don't know what the deal is with the retailer, but I mean, we do give Diamond the standard, 60% off. So what they sell to the retailer, that's totally up to them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what part of the problem is with getting a lot of the independent books is they're not getting as high of a discount as they do off the standard for the.
Well, that's not right. Oh, I hate that. Oh, I hate that. Just not
right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think that's.
I'll be the guy to say it because this has happened in my situation. Retailers will tell the customer whatever they need to tell them to make themselves look like better. Yes. I've had customers tell me that they went to their comic book store and their comic book store told them they are unable to buy Big Dog Ink books.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Even though we are in the previews catalog, we've been there for years. Their retailer literally told them it is impossible to buy our books.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not through the AP aspect, but this is back when we were doing ourselves. But we were in Diamond on our own with books in the Diamond Top 300. And a retailer told those particular fans, there's no way for us to buy Big Dog Ink books.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, it's not just that. I mean, they do it to DC. I went to a retailer in Arizona who's no longer with us, unfortunately, passed away. But in 94, this is Vertigo. Sandman's hot. Cinema Mystery Theater is hot. Hellblazer's doing pretty good. Swamp Thing's pretty good. I'm sorry, I don't carry those books because only goths like that crap, and you're not a goth.
Oh my God.
And I just moved there. So I went home and I literally packed up my boxes of the complete run of Sandman up to that point, the complete run of 1 through 88 of Hellblazer at that point, etc. Showed him, yes, see, I own these. I would like you to buy them. He refused. This is DC books. How can you say you can't get DC product? So it's like, yeah, I just kind of gave up. That's what I'm saying. I had to, like, when I was living in Arizona, Nevada, I had to literally do mail order back from my retailer in Michigan and get my comics every 3 to 4 months because I couldn't trust retailers to do anything.
Yeah, well,
Lewis has a very contentious relationship with retailers.
Yeah, well, you have to understand. I'm sure a lot of the retailers, they grew up on Marvel and DC. That's all they know, you know. And so but I think that's changing. I think a lot of comic book retailers are understanding the value of indie comics because a lot of them have broken out. Some of them have actually gone to big things. Look at The Walking Dead. That was huge. That's an indie comic. And
Invincible now. Invincible. Is now
Invincible.
an Amazon thing.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, those are all indie comics. Hellboy. So there's a lot of gold in those indie comic hills.
Sure.
You just have to. The retailer just has to be open-minded enough to know that that these have, and also it brings in a different clientele, not just a standard Marvel and DC buyers. You might get like the goth people in to buy your Sandmans, your Hellboys, or whatever. Their money is as good as anybody else's.
Yeah, Hellboy, we can't carry that because we're in the Bible Belt and that's satanic. I've heard that too. And then the owner, Hellboy, The Golden Army came out, the movie. And he went to the movie, he liked the movie. 2 weeks after the movie, he had everything, every trade in like quadruple of everything Mignolaverse. And I'm like, I thought that was satanic. I thought you were afraid that the Bible people were going to come to bring the cops to you and close your store down. He's like, shut up. I don't want to talk to you. But this was my conversation with my retailer because I bought like 46 issues of between exciting horror comics, jungle comics, all the back issues he had of all the AP anthologies, and he was like mad that I bought them after I bought all this back stock. I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, just to show you how things have changed. I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, it was not unusual to carry adult comics.
Right.
And now you can't even find them anymore. Nobody does them anymore because nobody will carry them anymore.
Right.
Except that now they're humongous on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Those are some of the best-selling books on Kickstarter.
So
it's obviously a demand.
Yeah. So getting off the rant there on that on my end, back to the review on exciting. Really cool characters in this series, like Dinah Girl and Fallen Justice, Sumo Boy, Nothing Man, Ryobi, the Green Tempest, and more that you can only find here or possibly elsewhere in the crowdfunded or print-on-demand markets if you're like me and dare to tread those waters. Fans tell me, but it's not as good as. Oh, yes, they are as good as. Sometimes better than the current corporate books. There just isn't that much separation between talents these days, in my opinion. It's mostly just a matter of retailers and fans choosing not to give it a look due to it being an anthology series and because retailers are scared that it might sell. And we might prefer our stuff. And then, oh my gosh, I'm going to like Critter. I'm going to like, Dinah Girl better than, Bat books. Oh no, I'm going to lose all my sales of my Bat books. I can't have that. And that's the thing. Do the fans prefer it? I don't know. If the fans do prefer it, then we can all move on to making them standalone titles and be very successful with them, in my opinion. I gave it 4 out of 5. Chris, did you get to read any of the exciting issues?
I did, and I really enjoyed them. Yeah, I'm going to give them a solid 3.5 out of 5.
Okay. So there you go. 4
We'll try to do better.
Well, dude, 3.5 these days means you're above average in what's.
Oh no, I want that 5. I want that 5. I want that 5 on the wall. You hear that?
Wow. Okay. I think how many 5s have I given so far, Chris?
Since I've known you, probably like 2.
I've made it my life's mission now. This is the goal I'm going for.
Horror comics. Again, we reviewed those. We looked at those. That came out to 34 issues. Now this series has ended. Is that correct, Ben?
No, it's just still continuing. In fact, the thing was, Brian Dunn is the editor on that, and he's a little bit more. Truth be told, he doesn't get a lot of horror comic submissions. The seems like the people don't, creators, unless they're focused on a specific thing, they do mostly superheroes, and that's what they want because that's what Marvel and DC do, and that's what they want to get into is Marvel and DC. So we get a lot of superhero submissions, But as far as horror comics, I have to, beg people to send me stuff for Jungle Comics and for Planet Comics, so those are really hard to fill, But the thing about it with horror comics is Brian is he's very picky about who he allows in horror comics. So whenever he gets a good submission, that's when we put out a new issue. So that's why it's so infrequent.
Well, the last one I found came out in June 4th of 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, you get horror stories, usually 2 to 6 per issue was what I found until we got to issue 20 where it seemed to jump into standalone stories like Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
And those were good. Again, like most anthologies, most American fans or many American fans are going to have their whine about different creative teams not being their favorites or not equal caliber of quality or whatever. Or all those stories were good except one, and that one was a stinker. Now I can
can't all be winners.
Yeah, right. And I could do that. And I have recently for the Oni Press's EC brand of books. But we're not going to go there tonight because we're being positive and we're celebrating this publisher. As you can see, 6, 10, 12, 15. Same type of situation. Again, same battle. But what I got, I liked. The earlier issues are black and white, which again, some fans are just ignoring the books because it's black and white, and black and white's no good, blah, blah, blah. But I really enjoy them. Many of them are done by creators you haven't heard of because they're either Italian or European that Brian's found. And so they're not the same boring, overrated writers and artists that I see everywhere else at the same time, which is one of my big pet peeves with the Oni EC books or Hello Darkness from Boom, is that it's the same writers over and over and over again. So I thought that was a bonus. 3.5 is what we give it. And that's about what we give the EC books as well. So you're right on par with them. If not,
I'm honored. But we're going to go for that 5 again. We're going to do whatever we can to get that 5.
And then here's Ninja High School. These are upcoming issues, 197 and 198.
Yes.
Writers are Alfred Perez and Eric Perez G. Are not related, right? Different people.
No. But I'm usually what we usually do is we have these writer sessions. He lives in town, so what we do is I invite him over every once in a while. We talk about story ideas, and then I usually give him a plot, and he'll put in a script form, and then he sends the script to me, and I'll either have another artist draw it or I'll draw it. Sometimes I can't always draw the issue, so I let a guest artist, do an issue, and then when my project is done, then I go back to doing Ninja High School.
Okay. Well, these ones are drawn by Holly Daughtry and Eric Perez G. With colors by Alfred Perez and Kemanax. I call it a teen comedy adventure series. That's what I consider Ninja High School to be.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
And what 197 about is what this 2-issue storyline is about is Roger faces off against Prince Maynard Caspian of the Deep, who wants to take all the girls as his consorts and repopulate his underwater kingdom.
Yeah.
And then in Erica Chan, well, I didn't quite get that story. You want to try? Can you explain what that story was to be?
Well, it's basically a simple harem type story where the prince is an underwater kingdom.
Well, no, the backups, the Erica Chan story.
Oh, the Erica Chan story. That's a Mexican artist that I met when I was in at a convention down there, and he showed me his character Erica Chan, and I said, "Hey, this is kind of a cute character. It's very manga-esque, and if you want to submit a story, for me to consider, I'll be open to do that." And that's what he did. He submitted a story to me, and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I better keep my word and put the story into as a backup in Ninja High School." So it seemed to fit okay within the confines of the series. So and he keeps sending me new material, so I keep publishing it. So that's hopefully it'll build up a nice audience for it, and he can spin off into his own book.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like, doing a Shonen Jump. You just put it out there and see how it goes. And if it gets good enough, we move on to having its own series. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, I like doing that, for up-and-coming creators. I like to use established titles, give them an opportunity to get their stuff out there without having to fully commit to like an actual series, which is more of a risk on AP's part, because we don't know how well it'll do. This way we can gauge audience, reaction to it and see how well they like it. And if it does if we get good positive feedback on it, then we could spin it off into its own book.
Mm-hmm. Again, pretty straightforward preteen to teen comedy story. I kind of look at Ninja High School as manga Archie with superheroes.
That's exactly what it is. It's Archie taken to like it's a manga Archie taken to extremes.
Yeah, and I like the cover.
I don't remember fish monsters in Archie comics.
Well, that's because Jughead ate all the fish monsters as fish sandwiches.
Well, and also another thing is that's not the same cast that's from the original first issue.
Right.
The cat. I change the cast every 10 years. My reasoning is that,
People graduate. It's time for a new class.
It's time. It's time for a new generation to take over.
Yeah.
That's basically my
You need
attitude toward it.
you need to do the Saved by the Bell method and go to Ninja College. Bring those other characters back.
We can still do. We can do both. You can do Ninja College and Ninja High School.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we both gave this one 3 out of 5. Wasn't wowed by the artwork in this one, but it wasn't bad by any means. It just didn't quite have that.
Oh yeah, I mean I get it. It's she has a particular style.
No, she's good. It's
yeah. I mean Holly has definitely a particular style, and and she's also a big fan of the series. So I felt it was just
yeah. I mean we got no problem with her at all.
a way for her to
It's like, just because something isn't my top favorite artist does not make them a bad artist. You have to understand when you're reviewing books or you're an editor that there are different levels of quality that you have to acknowledge and support, and not just what you like. Which I think is something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, art is very subjective.
Yeah. And so many editors these days are just picking their favorites and not really looking around the scene, in my opinion.
And Lewis has a dizzying variation of indie books that he buys and that we review. So very eclectic taste.
Yeah. No, I'm eclectic, but certainly diversified.
Yes, very diverse taste.
Then we had
yes, that's one of the things I do love.
Next is Tomorrow Girl 13 for $4.99. This is also a forthcoming preview. Writer and letterer is Len Mihalovic. Pencils and inks for the live action segment is Phil Miller. Did I get it right? Phil did the live action and Antonio did the anime style?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Colors by Priya and Pillai and Len Mihalovic. Color assist or flatter, I don't know. Lawrence Guerrero, and I do have to question, since this hasn't come out yet, is that spelled correctly for Guerrero?
Yes, it's spelled correctly as far as I know.
Okay, because usually it's an ERO, and I wasn't at the end, and I was like, I wasn't sure. That's why I put spelling question mark.
Well, now you got me questioning that.
Yeah, so
I assume that's correct.
Yeah, I would double check before you send it to the printer.
Well, it's a little too late for that.
Okay. All right. Well, it is. Well, I didn't know because I know you gave me the PDF, but that doesn't mean it was at the printer yet. John.
Yes, it's at the. Everything's at the printer.
Yeah, but what it's about: Tomorrow Girl battles Professor Von Zoot and his giant robot army, and gets sent into a different dimension where she is accused of starting an invasion by a ditzy reporter. And the government-sanctioned Section 12 is sent out to capture her. There are also backup features Tractor Lad by Dan Collins and Domo Police by John Cowan. Or Cohen. Is it Cowan or Cohen?
Cohen.
Cohen? Okay.
Cowan.
All right.
Cowan.
What did I think? What did we think? The concept was all right. Phil Miller's art is just a little bit subpar. Just a tiny little bit subpar for me. It felt a little rushed to me. It's still reasonably well executed. I think it would have been fair if he had a more seasoned inker inking his pencils. It's the inks that kind of left me feeling a little raw on the art style. The animated segments by Antonio Rita, a little bit too basic for my tastes in manga, but the coloring lacked a little bit of depth, which didn't do the line art any favors. Chris, you said you saw a little bit of Von Bode in the art of Rita's style.
Yeah, the faces were absolutely, I could see Von Bode, or Bode, however you pronounce that, in the faces.
Okay, let me see if I can find that real quick. Okay, you were saying Von Bode, and I'm looking to put the PDF up here, if it'll show it. Okay, there it is. Of course, it wants to show the backup story first. My computer wants to play real slow. Here we go. I gotta stop sharing things so I can share the other thing. I love my computer. Let's see. This is what he's talking about, the wide eyes and the way the face looks. It reminds him of Von Bode.
Yeah, that's
You
sort
guys
of
see that?
Am I crazy, or does anybody else see that?
no, you're right.
Okay. All right. So yeah, and and again, it's reasonably well executed. Certainly don't have any complaints about it. Let's show the this is still more of the animated style, but let's go to the here we go. This stuff actually has a kind of a Jerry Ordway feel to it. It's just not as crisp as Jerry's pencils and inks would look. But I see a lot of that kind of feel in there. The Jerry Ordway, Rick Buckler type vein of style of art. And it's, reasonably well done. It's just the inks feel a little bit rushed, a little bit incomplete in how I would. Now, keep in mind, I've been an inker for 30 years, so I'm a little bit critical on that. But,
You're letting your bias show there.
Yeah, I'm letting my bias show a little bit there. But,
all right.
I can see, but it's not bad art by any means. Mm-hmm. The coloring is a little bit. I find it. Chris, you're the coloring expert. Do you find the color shading a little bit extra on her suit in this?
No. I thought the coloring on this part was absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I had no problem with that.
Okay. That's just me then. But yeah. So, pretty well done stuff there. We both the Tractor Lad story, the backups feature was really cute. I actually liked that for what it was. The Domo story was the one that was really weak for me, though. It weakened the overall grade for me. And I got to call that back up real quick here if it'll let me. It's not wanting to let me, of course. Why would we want you to do that? Let's see. Fight with it. All the way down here. This is, we'll show some of the Tractor Lad stuff here real quick.
So where in the world did you come across Tractor Lad, Ben?
Well, I got it as a submission, and
so a little kid or two turns into this,
yeah. Originally, I was going to run it in Exciting Comics, but I decided it was a little bit, it seemed to fit a little bit more in Tomorrow Girl. I sort of like a, sort of like gay. It was. I thought it was kind of unusual. It was really. I thought it attracted. It sort of reminded me of like those old Silver Age stories that you would sometimes get in the old DC comics, and I just thought it did fit pretty well with the tone of the series, and the guy was really 100%.
Nice. This guy is 100% a Legion of Superheroes guy.
Yeah. Well, he's either that or he's related to Jimmy Olsen and is from Smallville.
Well, the thing about it is that I'm such a soft touch. If you just talk to me in the right way, I was like, oh yeah, okay, fine, I'll do your book. So it's one of those things where
that's funny.
It was amusing to me. I liked it. The guy was really nice. Yeah. I mean, he had all the right buttons, and I said, okay, fine, I'll put it in as a backup in Tomorrow Girl, and I put it in there. So, I mean, the guy is really nice, so I couldn't say no.
Yeah, and hey, I'm actually liking it. Even when he turns back, oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up before my combine turns into back in Little Tracker.
Yeah, and it's so rare to come across. Actually, it's kind of rare to come across a just a fun, kid centric, superhero story, and I just, it just spoke to me, so I decided to go ahead and put it as a backup.
Yep, and I think that's good
choice. And so that leads me to your April Fool's post, Ben.
Yeah,
about bringing back Warrior Nun.
Yeah, that was kind of mean. I admit it.
Okay,
and go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. This is the Domo stuff. I was not thrilled with this, mostly because it just felt like in different panels that the art was unfinished. I felt like I couldn't make out certain details on the colors. I'm trying to find the one that's like the nose here is so roughed out here. It's like, did he paint over pencils in digital? Or, because I mean, this looks inked and this looks like it's pencil on the right.
Right.
And little things like that, just kind of like this doesn't look quite as good as it should. But
no, he was trying to go for he was trying to go for a very unfinished style to it. It's something akin to just being stylistic, in his approach. Now, yeah, I mean it was different, and I liked one of the big reasons I wanted to do it was because he did use Penguina, which is one of the characters in the Superverse, and also he's a longtime contributor, and like I say, he was also a very nice guy, and I just have a thing for creators who are nice to me. So if they send me something, chances are I'm going to go ahead and use it. So.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just maybe my usual cranky editor self. Yes.
I understand.
But this is the this is the story that weakened it for me a little bit.
But at the same time, I do have I feel a kinship to creators who are just starting out, who are just trying to find their way.
I think if he was a little more
I like to give them.
Yeah, I just think if he was just a little
I know
consistent.
I'm not. As an editor, I'm not too strict on things like that because, quite frankly, they're not making a whole heck of a lot of money. So I have to give a little, in terms of just being able to get them to get material in, and keep a constant flow of material coming in. Because, quite frankly, the AP. One of the big reasons AP is still around is because we have a constant flow of creator submissions, because that's the lifeblood of our company. If we don't get submissions from creators, we have nothing to publish. And if we have nothing to publish, then we'll pretty much go out of business,
Right.
So we like to keep the lifeline, going with creators and giving them the opportunity, to get their stuff. And hopefully, they'll turn out to be fantastic creators later on down the line. I mean, Fred Perry is a good example.
You got to start somewhere. Exactly.
Yeah. And we're the stepping stone to hopefully a bigger and better career for a lot of these creators.
Yeah, and I think that Tom feels the same way. I mean, he's done that all through his career with Big Dog Inc., helping other people out and stuff. So
yeah, it was really weird.
I don't know.
In the early days,
I was born
going to cons, right? In the early days, like I'm a year in, and there's people coming up to my table like I'm somebody, and I'm like, dude, last year I was on that side of the table. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Stop asking me the secret to breaking in, because I didn't do anything other than I made a comic book and I put it in Diamond. you know, I think the only thing that I could really say as far as why we made it in the early going was with my partner Steven Smurl. When we started Big Dog Inc., I was like, look, whatever we do artistically, this stuff has to stand up to anything else on the rack, because there was no crowdfunding at the time. It was just, we're going into Diamond, we're going into retail stores, we're sitting next to Batman, we can't look like crap. And so everybody that we tried to find for our interiors and our covers and all that kind of stuff, we really kind of were like, we gotta make sure we have a level up on this part. And thankfully I think we did, because I'll go back and look at some of this early stuff that I wrote and I'll be like, oh God, who read this and said, yes, give me more. But I think conceptually I had it down, and I think artistically we had a great foundation. And then that allowed the readers to be like, well, this is a little rough, but I kind of like what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. And then it allowed me to grow and keep going. And, now here we are 15 years later.
Did you ever get any comparisons to like Squirrel Girl? Anything like
Squirrel
that?
Girl didn't exist when we started.
Oh, okay.
Or if she did exist, she was not what she is now by any stretch of the imagination. So no, we never really had any comparisons in the critter context. We never really had any comparisons, because one of the closest things would be probably like Catwoman, except that they're obviously completely different from Catwoman.
Right.
But she was like the lead cat thing that existed out there as far as the general public would know. There's cat girls in like FemForce and things like that, but that's not sort of the general understanding of cat girls. So there really were more probably cat girls in like anime and manga stuff than anything else.
You begin compared with all the
and that's why when we made our first action figure, it was Critter, because I figured no one knows who our characters are, but we would have sort of a toe dipped in the anime manga crowd, and they love cat girls. So even if they don't know what Critter is from a comic book standpoint or a character, it's still a cat girl figure. And we can sell a cat girl figure, and that's exactly what happened. So it was great.
Yeah, that's very smart. Very smart.
And there she is. Dun dun dun.
And that's a great figure. Yeah, that's
how
really
does that tail work anyway? It's part of her belt, right?
It's 30 points of articulation. It's insane.
Yeah,
absolutely insane that this exists.
Who
I still can't believe this exists.
Yeah, who did you hire to do that?
So this is a company that started doing custom figures called Loose Collector, and then they over time became an actual manufacturer called Executive Replicas. And these are the guys that do the figures for like Coffin Comics, Lady Death, the Dynamite figures like Vampirella and Purgatory and all that kind of stuff. That's the same company. And when they were Loose Collector a million years ago, I contacted them and I said, hey, I need a Critter figure because we'll never have Critter figures, but I need to have one. And so we made a custom out of an old Danger Girl J. Scott Campbell figure. And that's on the other side of the room. That's over there. And so I've had that figure for many, many years. And I thought, this is it. This is as close as I get. And then a handful of years ago, they came back to me and they were like, hey, so do you want to do like a real figure now? And I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's make that happen. So yeah, so we did a ridiculously crazy Kickstarter and funded the figures, and now we have real honest to God action figures.
And now you can just have stuff 3D printed and it's fairly cheap.
Yeah. And that, since you just mentioned Kickstarters, that's a good segue. What Kickstarters do you have currently going on, Ben? You there, Ben?
Uh-oh, maybe he froze up.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there he goes.
Okay. Yeah. I asked what Kickstarters do you currently have ongoing?
For me personally, I've got a Indiegogo campaign going. It's a Tomorrow Girl Volume 4, Flight to the Future. It's a collection of the previous issues of Tomorrow Girl and in graphic novel format. Mm-hmm. So that's running on Indiegogo. I can't do it on Kickstarter because they banned Tomorrow Girl on Kickstarter, so can't do it there. They don't tell you. You know, they'll all they tell you is you can't do it anymore, and you can't appeal it. You can appeal it, but it's pointless. You know, when they make up their decision, make up their minds, you can't really do anything about it. So
You
I
never
think someone
explained
complained
why.
about the character, you know,
Yeah. Oh,
from what I understand, and so I can no longer do Tomorrow Girl on Kickstarters anymore. So I moved to Indiegogo, and that's where I am with that currently. So
and that is at. Let me go ahead and share that real quick in our chat.
And that is doing a very reasonable amount there. So
yeah, I think it's doing all right for Indiegogo, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's very strange. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, you know, what I suspect may have happened. Are you having problems with all your Kickstarters or just Tomorrow Girl?
Just Tomorrow Girl.
Okay. Well, if you start trending that towards that direction, it's because of Comicsgate nonsense. Because the Comicsgate people are only allowed to be at Indiegogo now, and all this other crap. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
I don't know. I can't explain it. You know, it's one of those things that it's beyond my control. So I have to go ahead and make a I have to adapt, you know, as they say.
Yeah. Now the PDF is 10. The soft cover edition is 25, which is 16% off the regular standard cover, which would be 30. How many pages would this be in print?
It's currently at 128 pages.
Okay. Sounds like a reasonable thing. Again, you've got variety of different covers here.
Mm-hmm.
You got Coronado, or Conrad, yeah. Ooh, you can get a sketch version of the soft cover.
Oh,
is
yeah.
That a blank sketch that you do? Those are blank covers that you just sketch on? Okay.
Yeah, I do a sketch inside.
Oh, a sketch inside. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the hardcover edition. What's your hardcovers point, weight, stuff like that? Is it like a really good thick hardcover, or just like?
Yeah, it's a standard hardcover. It's anybody who's gotten them in the past is pretty sturdy hardcover. It's a very nice paper quality too.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just wondered because I mean, some people have been trying to go with the cheaper hardcovers, very thin, and
I have no idea what that is. All I know is the hardcovers I get are pretty sturdy.
Yeah. Or you could have all three bundle for $85, which is reasonable. Mm-hmm. At 20, at 25 to 30 a piece, yeah.
So now there seems to be two schools of thought on Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Some people go for exactly what they need, and then there's some people that go for the lowest amount possible, so they'll fund, hoping that they're going to go way over. So is that what you're trying to do here, Ben, or because your goal was 500?
Yes, I mean that's honestly that's basically what I would need. The minimum I would need to actually print any of these books. Yeah. I don't take into account what it costs me to actually get the pages done. But I just take the chance that I'll make enough to cover that. So yeah. But I'd rather lose money and get the book out than not get the book out, as so to speak.
Yeah. What's your theory on that, Tom? Do you tend to price?
I don't play algorithm games. If you're putting $500 on a thing, hoping that that's going to catapult you to some upper level of purchases because you're funded, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. And if you need, let's say you need 3,000 just to pick a number, and you get 500 as your goal, and you end up getting 1,000, Well, what are you doing at that point? You're
Yeah,
now
I mean,
2,000 in the
you're
hole,
right.
and you're hosed. So your best bet is, now granted, you don't want to go the other way either and assume that you're just going to make money and be like, I'm going to put $5,000 and, you know, whatever. No, you need to just really look at, like, what do you need to actually make this thing, should you fund, and then pick that number.
Right.
And then, you know, if you fund, great. If you make more money, great. If you make less money, you're not out, you know, because it's in the context of Kickstarter. You know, if you don't fund, it just goes away. With Indiegogo, you have the thing called what do they call it?
Flexible. It's called flexible funding.
Flexible. Yeah. So you can actually make some of the money even if you don't reach the ultimate goal. So they have a little bit of different elements with Indiegogo, but I use Kickstarter, and it's all or nothing. So
Yeah.
So, somebody
but you really got to be careful playing that algorithm game.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I agree. It's not for beginners.
Yeah.
You got to know what you're doing. I've done enough of these to know that, but you know, to me, it's more important just to get the book out.
Now, this is cool. You got 5 stories where you're facing Luchadora. You've got Megaton Man. Is that actually, that's your drawing?
Uh-huh.
And so you got to get permission from, I can't think of his name.
Don Simpson.
Don Simpson, thank you.
Yep, I got permission.
Yeah, and that Don's very picky about that sort of thing. So
yes, he is, very much so. But you know, he's a really nice guy to work with. You know, when you get on the good side.
Yeah, and then of course we talked about the Section 12 that will be in there. Again, that's the second section of Section 12 as well.
Yeah,
and then the rest of it. So you got the whole complete story of that as well. And, you know, again, you got $5,000 stretch goals, which is not really that big a deal. I mean, if you're, where are you at right now?
He's only like 1,200 away from it.
Yeah, and you got 14 days left, so it's not like it's
not unattainable.
Yeah, it's not unattainable. So, so it's not bad.
If I do exactly what I did last time, I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you've got other sets as well. Let's look at the other campaigns real quick on your thing. You did Small Body Ninja High School.
Mm-hmm.
It's not showing.
It's not showing?
No.
Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong.
Yeah, it's on Kickstarter. It's not on Indiegogo.
Well, I know why, because I went to full profile and it opened a new window. That's why. Okay.
Yeah, that's an old campaign.
Oh, the old campaign that's in Indiegogo is.
Yeah, I ran the campaign originally on Kickstarter, and that fulfilled. So I always have a little bit left over. So I run another campaign on Indiegogo to see if anybody who doesn't go on Kickstarter, I give them the chance to get it on Indiegogo.
Right, and demand, right.
Right. So, you know, that allows me to give them the chance to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that one concluded on March 13th.
Yeah.
All right. And so, you know, I thought that one was still going. That's all, because it was in demand, and so many people leave their in demand books for so long. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. Sometimes you just forget. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, is that thing still in demand? I need to turn that thing off.
Yeah, but I love I wish I'd seen this, because I would have. If you've got one soft cover, let me know. I'll send you a payment for it. You can ship it to me.
Sure, no problem. I'll be happy to send you one. I'll sign it for you.
Yeah, because I mean, this looks fun to me, you know, with the chibi art style and, you know, with the characters and stuff. So,
yeah, very, very fun art.
Yeah, and it's more akin to the original characters too. So, you know, I'm more. Now this is interesting. Is this yours too, Ben, or is this someone else's? No,
that's mine.
Yeah, that's okay. That was your 2000 style. Okay. Yeah. Where you were kind of adding in a little bit of Humberto Ramos in there.
I don't know if I was or not. didn't think I was.
Yeah. Well, I see a little bit of the angularity in it, I guess.
I guess that was just the style at the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's fun looking stuff.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I like this. Okay. So we'll go ahead and close that one down. So is there any other ones you have currently going on?
Not that I'm aware of. I know
Okay.
that Antarctic Press has one for the Go Digger, but I'm not. I don't handle that aspect of it. That's a
Okay.
totally separate thing.
Now, unfortunately, Tom's mother passed away recently, last week.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And so, you want to give everybody a quick update as to what the situation is with your plans for crowdfunding?
Yeah, so we pushed everything back and we canceled a few things for this year that we'll move into next year. Like we were planning to do our big shark graphic novel. That's going to be next year now. We were going to do one last issue of Goth Day. That's going to move to next year. We're still bringing Penny for Your Soul back. That's going to be June now is the schedule for that. And then we have our so 40 years of Ninja High School. Ben, did you also know it's been 40 years of the Dirty Pair anime this year?
Oh no, I had no idea that. That was true.
Yeah. So we did a little Dirty Pair tribute with some of our characters, Critter and Chloe, and we're going to have a little short, like 10-day campaign for that short story. The end of this month, which I think the last Wednesday is, the 29th or the 30th. We're going to run a 10-day campaign for Critter and Chloe. For that, and then in June we'll do Penny for Your Soul, and then we'll kind of restructure and get stuff done for the rest of the year. We'll have our BD 15 anthology because it's our 15-year anniversary this year. We'll have our BD 15 anthology in October as planned, and then in September we're going to bring back what we call the Big Dog Ink Book Fair, which was a huge success last year. But this year we're going to be doing an omnibus, our first ever omnibus for the Legend of Oz: The Wicked West. So it'll be a big 400-page hardcover book. It'll be our first ever omnibus that'll then lead us into next year, which is the 15-year anniversary of The Wicked West. So we'll be focusing on that a lot next year.
Okay. And that date is actually the 30th of
The 30th.
April.
Okay. So yeah, that last Wednesday is what we're aiming for. Yeah.
So that's when we'll do that. And make sure you let me know, and I'll make mention of it
Sure.
On my I'll actually make mention of it on the Tuesday before and say, hey, tomorrow it's launching.
Great.
That's the best way to do it. Okay, we've been talking with Ben Dunn and Tom Hutchinson. And you guys out in the chat, you got any questions for Ben or Tom?
I know I have one for Ben. So again, your April Fools about bringing back the Warrior Nun.
Uh-huh.
You had also mentioned that you were interested in accepting proposals for things in a similar vein. How serious were you about that?
Oh, I'm always serious. You know, the thing is whether or not people take me seriously. Yeah, more you can ask anybody who's actually submitted anything to me that I always follow up on any inquiries, submissions or anything else like that. I don't leave anybody hanging, and if it's something that looks like it's got a lot of potential, or if you want to move forward, I tell you exactly what it entails, what you're going to get out of it, what is expected. And it's really up to you to decide whether you want to move forward with it, once you get all the information. So if you were to hand me a completed story and it looks really good, there's a really good chance I'd tell you what we would need to do next to get it published.
Well, because me and my studio mates at Exile Studios are actually, we sent you, Travis sent you some artwork, and you were like, yeah, send me a pitch. So we're actually, we're working up a pitch for a Warrior Nun-ish character.
Awesome. Yeah.
For you, so.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, though, that I may not be the best place to do something like that. What I usually like to do, if it's an original character that you've created, Okay, I was highly encourage you to crowdfund it yourself. To get the money, to for yourself, 100% to yourself, and then send it to me. After you made your money back. This way, if I do decide to go ahead and go with it, uh, what you make off of us is basically just gravy. Since you've already paid for everything. It's the same deal we have with Tom. He does his creator Kickstarters and crowdfunding, and we have no problem with that. Tom can make as much money as humanly possible, on creator. In fact, I encourage it, and then when he's done with it, then he can decide to send it to us, after he's made all his money, on the original campaign. We're basically just reprinting, stuff he's already done, and any money he makes off of us is just money on top of what he's already made. So
Okay.
that's what I would encourage you to do, especially if it's a creation of your own.
Well, that's the piece we sent to you.
Also, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. I'm not involved with that one, so I don't know. Eventually, Travis and needs to send me some of his pencils so I can ink them. Because sometimes
it's a great character. You could make that your own. Really, to be honest, it doesn't have to be a quote unquote warrior nun, character. You could make this your own, copyright it, trademark it, make it your own, and then you could send it to us, and we'll publish it, and you'll still be the creator and owner of this character, So
right, because remember, Warrior Nun, Ben doesn't own that anymore.
Yeah, I don't own it anymore.
So even if you were to make this, it can't be under the Warrior Nun umbrella.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we were gonna Battle Nun or something like that. It was
right.
We're gonna go with a different name. But yeah, we're writing up a pitch for it. So.
Oh hell yeah! I mean, it looks great. I think it has a lot of potential.
Travis in the comments, that's the artist, that's the line artist, and I did the colors on that. So
yeah, it's beautiful work.
Yeah. So yeah,
I'd buy
it. So yeah. Sometimes yeah, go ahead, Ben.
No, I just say I mean, like I said, I highly encourage you to go ahead and crowdfund it, and I think you do really well with it, to be honest.
Yeah, so you're saying do the crowdfunding, and then once we got the crowdfunding for mass market, then go pitch it through you.
Yeah, then pitch it to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the advice. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. To me, I want every creator, to make as much money as humanly possible. Because that to me, I think if everyone does well, then the whole industry does well. Mm-hmm. I'm not I always feel like if I could help in any way, for creators to get off the ground, to make money, to do well, it benefits all of us, and it makes the whole industry stronger, more dynamic, more creative, and I just don't see the need for people to be at each other's throat, because it just seems so antithetical, and it makes the whole industry,
childish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you're in the middle of your middle grade school cafeteria.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can see how much we could accomplish if everyone would just work together. You know, I mean, being able to cross over with each other characters, we could make do a lot of interesting things, and make people excited, about the comics again. People to give them a reason to come to comic stores, to know what's going on, to pick up the latest, stories and stuff like that. And crowdfunding is helping out, but unfortunately with crowdfunding, it's only direct to consumer. So you don't get the advantage of the general public just walking in and discovering your thing for the first time. They had to actively be searching for it, on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and not everyone does that. But, when you have, even if they don't buy your book, if 10 people walk by and see your comic, that's 10 people who've seen it,
Right.
who may potentially buy it in the future. No, so, but that's just me,
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So, real quick, I would like to get. I know I didn't talk to Lewis about this ahead of time, but I would like to get Ben and Tom your opinions on just real quick. Alliance, help, hinder. What do you think?
I don't think we're going to know for a while. However, the head guy at Alliance was on a podcast not long after the first time they bought Diamond, and he was talking about how they don't want price points that are under $10. So if that's the case, I think that's fine, but only if they are going to be be active in the book market side of things versus, just the floppy side of things. Right. I think that'll work if they're going to be heavy into that. But it's going to require publishers to modify, what they're doing, because you can't just raise your price for a floppy to $10. You're going to have to essentially have a double-sized issue for $10 at the minimum. If you want to do that, or it's just going to become potentially a place where people bring their original graphic novels or trade paperbacks versus any sort of a floppy concept through them. Right. But again, that's just initial talk. They may change their minds, once they actually get in the weeds of it all, they might change their minds, but that's their market. They have a higher price point distribution market through all the other things that they do. They're not just, flipping comics. So
right. I had mentioned this when that interview was done, that the key for them is that they have 35,000 other outlets outside of comic shops,
right?
And what we need to be worried about as publishers is getting in talk with Bruce Ogilvy and his buyer reps to find out what we can do to get our books placed not just in comic stores but outside the comic stores, and have it set up so that people will discover comics out in the so-called real world, but then we could have other content that is exclusive to comic shops that would direct them to the comic shop once we've got them interested in the media. And I don't know who's going to have that conversation with them. I mean, I've offered to have that conversation. I know David Campides said he was going to be interested in having that conversation, but I think it's going to take a lot more than just two people to have that kind of.
I don't have a sense that those guys give a damn about a couple thousand comic book stores. I don't think exactly. That's my sense, and I'm not saying that that's the fact. That's my sense, is that they're just like, it's fine if they're there, but like you just said, we have 35,000 outlets to send things to, and that is the general public. That's the general public that has, forgotten that comic books exist. So if Lunar and Penguin and whoever else are going to, sort of take care of the LCS with whatever it is that they do, and Alliance is able to come in and say, look, Tom, Big Dog Inc., we're going to take Critter trades and Penny for Your Soul trades and Princesses versus Zombies trades, and we're going to put them in 35,000 outlets. Yes, please. Like that's the piece that has been missing from the comic book world for so long. I mean, not that we ever had 35,000 comic book stores, but even back in the day when there were like 8,000 comic book stores,
the thing is,
things were going really well.
We did have 35,000 comic stores. There were like 7-Elevens.
Well, yeah, including those types of places. Yes, yeah,
yeah. Right. Okay, so we have extensively talked about this Alliance thing. The thing about it is that right now it's business as usual with Diamond. Okay, until the Alliance comes in and actually takes over and starts changing things, to us it's business as usual. We're still doing the solicitations. We're still sending comments to Diamond, and Diamond's still paying us. Now, once Alliance takes over, we don't know what their policy is going to be because they haven't actually said so outright. Now, the interview you're talking about, I did see that, and he did mention that they weren't interested in, that's just one guy's take on things.
Right.
Now, whether or not he's the actual person who makes the decisions.
Well, he
you know,
is one of the head people, one of the co-founders of the company. But
Yes.
also, you got to keep in mind, and he said this in the interview, I haven't even had a chance to look at what is actually there in the warehouses.
Right.
In the warehouses.
He's
doesn't know yet.
he's talking based on his experience, okay,
Exactly.
of what he's done. Now, there is an example of a $10 comic. It's called manga. Okay,
Right.
manga does $10 comics. Okay,
Mhm.
they do it. In fact, they do it in a small digest size format, and people
Right.
have no problem paying $10 for a typical manga. Now, how this is going to hurt creators, okay, is that comics have to be a floppy medium, okay, because if it's not, then they're not comics in the truest sense of the word. They become graphic novels or collections, okay.
Mhm.
And the thing about is that the thing about comics is that comics is it's supposed to be a low end, medium that you get it out on the stands every week. Okay,
Right.
that's the business model. Okay, is that you have to have a comic book on the stands every week. Manga doesn't do that. Okay, manga is in the bookstore. It stays on the shelf months, maybe even years on end,
Mhm.
until it sells.
Right.
Now AP is in a position, we've been around for 40 years, so we have content. Okay, so content, if it means that we sell $10 content, we can do that. Okay, and that's where we as a publisher may have an advantage over a single creator who's just starting out. Okay, Tom has 25, 26 issues of Critter, so he's content. Okay, he can repackage that content into a $10 format very easily, if you really wanted to. If he wanted to do it himself or through AP could do all the hard work of, soliciting it, printing it and shipping it, if that's what he wants to do. Now he could do it on his own. He could make it if Alliance decides to want to pick up comics and sell to their outlets, then he can do that. I mean, they can do that in a $10 format easily because we have content, and that's our big advantage, as a publisher. Is that especially as long as we have 300 issues of Gold Digger, we have 200 issues of Ninja High School, we've got countless issues of books that we've done in the past that we own, and we know a lot of creators that we can simply call up and says, hey, do you want to put your stuff into 35,000 outlets? How many of them would say
no, Ben, we don't want that. No.
You'd be shocked.
Are you crazy?
But that could be the new dynamic. That could be the new thing. But we don't know yet. Okay,
Right.
Alliance hasn't told anybody what their comic book plans are, if any. Okay,
Right.
they may just say we don't want to deal with the comics, But the thing is, that's laying on money on the table. Okay,
Mhm.
comics sell. If you make sure that people get them and you price it at a price point that people want them, they will buy it. Manga is a good example of that. I see people, no hesitation, $10, they buy a manga, they walk out with it.
I don't think $10 price point is the problem. I think it's just the amount of content you're getting for the $10, because the typical floppy is already $5 for like 20, 24 pages, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, standard Marvel comics, 18 pages, and they want $5 for it. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But what Marvel does have is content. They got 80, 90 years of content that they could reprint till the cows.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So that's their big, huge advantage. And plus, they're owned by huge corporations worth billions of dollars. So they're not going to be worried about money. The biggest problem is going to be us, the little guy, the independent comic creator. How are we going to get now? Crowdfunding is a good source, but it's limited,
Right.
and as more and more indie creators come in, the markets could get more and more crowded, and so people have to, now, can it support that many? Can the pie get larger? Yes, it could. If people start to just, the thing about Kickstarter and Indiegogo, a large percentage of the population don't even know what that is. I mean, really think about it. There's billions of people on this planet Earth. Maybe a small fraction of them know what Indiegogo and Kickstarter is. Imagine if you could get more people to be aware of your content on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and drive more traffic there. See, that's to me the key component in all of this, as far as being able to monetize what we're doing. Now, of course, doing things like what we're doing here on YouTube, that also helps. YouTube allows us to reach large swaths of people that normally we couldn't do otherwise. Back in the day, we had to buy ads in magazines and, or buy television ads, and those had limited success. But now you have the whole internet, and you can reach potentially millions of people, with just the right algorithms, basically.
Yep.
So until we know what Alliance is actually going to do, we're on pins and needles, and we're just doing business as usual until we're told to stop.
Right. And yeah, I'm figuring it's going to be, it's going to be like a 6 to 18 month process and turnover to Alliance, and what 6 months of figuring out what they want to do or what's being done at Diamond. Then what are we going to do? Because I think they're going to change them over to the computer system that is working for them. And what I've talked to retailers who actually use Alliance for their records and toys and other things already, they're like, they can't wait to have Alliance have comics compared to Diamond.
Well, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, we're doing business as usual until we're told not to do it. Okay, as far as we know, Diamond is still accepting comic books. They're still accepting solicitations. They're still doing business as usual. So we're not doing anything different. As far as what we're doing, the only thing we're doing different is our content. We made a conscious decision to only focus on IPs that AP owns. And the reason is that until we know what the situation is as far as Diamond distribution is concerned, we can't really take a chance on creator-owned material because we just don't sell enough of it to justify the expense of the process. Now, of course, there's exceptions if the creator is willing to accept the new dynamic. Like for instance with Tom and for Tim Lim and Bill Williams with Punchline, they've all elected to stay. As far as their books are concerned, until something else changes. And also their books sell well for us, and so it's worth it to them to keep the books going. But slowly we're bringing back our anthologies, because so far Diamond hasn't really. We're willing to take a little bit more of a chance, and see what happens with the Diamond, thing for now with when Alliance takes over.
Right.
So once we figure out, the thing is, right now we're in sort of a nebulous, dark zone. We're not quite sure what's going to happen. We can't predict, but so far nothing has changed. Diamond hasn't told us, hey, stop everything. We're not doing anything anymore. They're still accepting books from us. They're still accepting solicitations from us, and they're still paying us. So we're still good as far as Diamond is concerned. Now that could all change tomorrow, but until that happens, we're just doing business as usual. Now we're preparing, for if something were to happen that would, totally, take us by. We don't like surprises, so we want to be prepared. So if Alliance were to say, yeah, we're not going to carry comics anymore, it's just not our thing, then we can pivot to something else.
Right.
But until that happens, we're just running things as normal.
Okay. That makes
Good
sense.
answers. Yeah.
And I presume you're pretty much the same mind, Tom. You're just keeping things.
Well, for me, to be perfectly honest, it doesn't affect me in the slightest, because I left Diamond on purpose 8 years ago. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going to go to Kickstarter. I'm going to do direct to customer. So it affects me in the context of AP, but even that, again, it's really a third printing of Critter. So, there's nothing that we were adding new covers to it, but there really wasn't anything new. But what it was giving me was a different set of eyeballs, like we talked about early in the show. It was giving me new eyeballs on the product, which is great, but it doesn't affect my forward motion about producing more Critter, more Penny for Your Soul, more Ursa Minor, more Oz. Like, my track was always Kickstarter, crowdfunding, direct to customer first. And then if I ever see that doors are open somewhere, whether it's through AP or, just bringing Big Dog Inc. back on its own at some point through the retail system, then I look at those doors. But, I've always said that, the retail side of things, there's not a lot of money there. So you have to kind of treat it as a marketing expense. So as long as you're kind of making your money back and theoretically building an audience that you can translate into web store sales and Kickstarter and crowdfunding and drive them into new, other places, then it's great. But you can't go into if you're putting all your eggs in the local comic shop basket, you'll be out of business in 6 months because you're just not you're not going to make any money there. I mean, you can even look at some of these publishers that have gone out of business now that had some of the biggest names in the industry doing books for them, and now they're gone. A lot of publishers, though, came in not so much for the purpose of comics as using comics as pitch material for Hollywood. Right. That's always been, not always, but that's been for a long time. That's been the case. So you see a lot of stuff that people are just kind of throwing against the wall and see what might stick and get them a check for hey, we want to make a TV show. Here's 10 grand. Thanks. Give me the 10 grand.
That's actually dried up now,
For sure. Yeah.
Well, it dried up in part because of COVID and in part because people don't understand how Hollywood works. You can get your option and get your check, but that option now ties you up for 3 to 7 years while they go decide whether or not they can even get someone to pick up their option to make a movie or a TV show. And you don't see any more money and you don't have any more money to make your comic. So your comic goes away.
Yes, that's true.
And sure, there are people who can make money off of their options. I mean, Jim Starlin's made a mint, but he doesn't actually produce his books. He just says, well, here's a concept. You guys want it. Here's not. Pay me for the option. You guys go make it, if you can. But comics cost money to make. And a lot of these companies that people were complaining about, like Scout or Aftershock, they didn't pay their talent. It's not that they didn't pay their talent. It's all the money that they had to pay the talent's dried up, and there's not enough sales to keep paying these creators to keep doing the books. They didn't screw the creators. The retailers and the fans are spending so much money on gimmick covers and Funko Pops and other things and not buying these books to maintain them, unfortunately. And you can't just do, like you say, the more we get everybody in the crowdfunding platforms, whether it's Kickstarter or Indiegogo or Zoop or Fund My Comic, there's so many of them now. There's like 18 different brands now.
Oh, yeah. I think you're going to see more of them, actually.
I do. I do too.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see some publishers follow, or at least attempt to follow the Brian Polito and Eric July model of just soliciting and distributing themselves.
Yep. Yeah. Make your own crowdfunding platform, like
exactly.
Polito did. Yep.
Yep.
I mean, if you can do it,
if you can, because why would you pay those other companies a percentage of your money?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah, that is what we're looking at in the next probably 2 to 3 years, probably, if not sooner. But over the span, But okay, well, it's we've hit the little over 2 hours mark. I want to thank Ben and Tom for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Wonderful conversation, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so
much. It.
Yeah,
and make sure you guys check out that Indiegogo project, Tomorrow Girl Volume 4, Flight to the Future. Do you have other back issue volumes available as well?
What do you mean?
Like Volume 3, Volume 2, are those available?
Oh, yes, only in PDF form though. don't have very many copies left of the first 3 volumes, but you can get the PDF if you just want to read it.
Okay. Just want to make sure to get that clarified. And of course, there's also an AP store.
Yes.
So, I'm trying to get there, and it won't take me there. It's always fun with this computer. My computer is not ancient; it just doesn't like.
I always like to rag on Lewis and tell him that those hamsters that are running his computer are thirsty.
Yeah, that is what he does. Let's see. There we go. You have a Shopify account. And this is the page.
Yes, the AP does.
And yeah, right. And this is where you can go check out a lot of really cool stuff as well. And that's antarcticpress.myshopify.com. And it's got like all kinds of cool stuff. All your new releases are here. They let you know which ones are and aren't sold out.
Yeah, so a nice little online store there.
Yep. And
where can we find you, Tom?
BigDogInk.com. That'll take you right to the store. Get all the stuff you want. We do, everybody here kind of knows us for Critter, which is awesome because that everybody asks me like, "What's your favorite book?" That's it. That's the one I like to do. But we do westerns and horror and fantasy and all kinds of stuff. So, one of our biggest books is our most recent titles is Princesses versus Zombies, and you can get those on there. So, tons of stuff. Go check it out. 15 years of Big Dog Ink. Ben, in 2050 will be where you are right now. 40 years.
I can't wait.
Okay, now I have a question, Tom. I'm going to stop sharing his. I'm going to try and share yours and make sure this is the right thing. Yeah, that's weird. All right. It doesn't say Big Dog Ink.
BigDogInk.com will move you to the Equid store. ECWID.
Okay, there we go. That's what I was trying to.
Yeah.
All right. Windows. Why is it showing? It's a Chrome tab. There we go. Yeah. I was looking at it as an Equid store 79085 at Equid.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that does say Big Dog Ink, but yeah. All right.
So there you go. We've got the comics. We've got there's some merch in there. There's art prints if you like art prints. The Aspen stuff that we did, whatever. I don't have a lot of Aspen stuff, but if you want some of that Aspen stuff that we did, it's got its own section there. And but if you click on the comics button, it'll break out all of the books that we have by title, and you'll get a sense of all the stuff that we do.
And you can get graded books in the.
We have a handful of graded books. We don't do a lot of graded stuff, but we have some things hanging around.
Okay. And there's Blue Jay, Camp Crossover.
There's all of our different titles. And when you go
I'm excited for, From the Water. I love shark books. I love sharks. So that one excites me.
Yeah. Ursa Minor, Shazarad, or Shahrazad.
Scheherazade,
yeah.
Scheherazade.
Pay for Your Soul, all kinds of cool stuff. Be sure to check that out. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the front page and go ahead and copy that. And this is the Big Dog Ink link.
Yeah, you can just type in BigDogInk.com and it'll just forward right to it.
Yeah. So.
Or you can just copy and paste that. Either way.
Yep. Crate convo as usual from Joey Joe. Joey's one of our my local comic shop workers. So.
Joey's his dealer. I got some comics here, man. What you want? I got this. I got that. I got whatever you want.
He's got 20% of what I want. because like almost not getting 80 to 85% of what I buy is online these days. I not because I'm trying to be anti-retailer. It's just they don't have the stuff. They can have a difficult time getting it, or they don't want to get it.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I don't know. Hopefully, over the next 18 months or so, once Ogilvy and company and Alliance figure out what's going on, we'll see some changes and we'll see more expansion. And maybe crowdfunding people and print-on-demand people can get more into the retails again. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Because even if they're interested in carrying us, the retailers still have to be willing to carry us and market us too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're in a creator economy right now, because you can just make what you want and just send it to the people that want it. There aren't 3 or 4 chains in the link, to get to a customer anymore. It's just make it, put it on a website, put it on Webtoons, put it on Kickstarter, whatever. Make what you want and put it in the hands of the people that want it.
Yep.
Great point.
Playing time while we can't get all your books in. Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the books used to come through Diamond, and the retailers didn't order them. Not necessarily your store, Joey, but other stores. Not enough, so we had to transfer. A lot of people had to transfer over to Kickstarter and Indiegogo just to get enough out of it to warrant doing it. Unfortunately, and what can you say? We had that conversation earlier. Like I was saying, I mean, do you remember when Chris Sims was the manager over at Heroes and Dragons? I asked for Hellboy. You don't carry Hellboy because it's, we're in the Bible Belt. We can't carry that. The churchgoers will have this shut down. Yeah, and then he goes with the boss to see it, and they like it, and next thing you know, everything there. Like
the correct answer should have been, yes, I will get that for you right away, sir.
Yeah, exactly. But whatever.
All right.
It is what it is. Whereas I mean, my guy, Joey's boss, does everything he can. He searches high and low for stuff, but there are some things that his distributor people just don't have. So that's the way it is. But he does try. I'm not going to give him. I will never cut. Never downplay Eric Woodard's efforts for what he tries to get us. So, alrighty then, gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show. We greatly appreciate your presence. We wish you luck, and again, our condolences to you for your loss, Tom. We know that's weighing heavy on you, and we hope that we gave you a little bit of relaxation for a couple hours to just chill and have fun with the conversation.
Always fun to talk comics. Happy to do it anytime.
Thank you very much. It was an honor, guys.
Yes. All right, folks. So I gotta go over here because my stupid computer didn't put where it was supposed to be. No, it didn't do my my closing stuff. That's all.
Meanwhile, those hamsters are over there going.
So let me see.
Someone was trying to find where he put it. Where did you put it? Oh, I know where it's at. Today was yesterday. There it is. All right. No, it's not there. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm not even worried about it. I'm just gonna say have a good night, folks, because I'm tired of looking for things. But
you got to take care of yourselves, okay?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Take care.
Thank you a lot. All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. Quoth the Raven. Nevermore.
Nevermore.